Thank you, Arnie, and may God add his blessing to the reading of the scripture this morning, and may the words from my mouth be just what we need to hear. In a major tournament, the professional golfer, Gary Player, decided that he was going to do something really cool, and he was going to hit the ball off of a stone wall, and it would ricochet back and go on the green. That was his plan. Well, he hit the ball, and it went exactly where he wanted it to. It hit that stone wall exactly in the spot he thought it should. Well, it came back, hit him square in the face, and knocked him out. He was unconscious. He said, "Finally, I regained my senses. I was still groggy. I chipped onto the green, and then somehow, a long putt and into the hole, the ball went." I'm getting a phone call. A little busy now, thank you. And it went in. And so he thought, great. I'll be tied for the lead now and a playoff for the win. About that time he was thinking that, an official came up to him and informed him that he got a 2-stroke penalty because he impeded the flight of the ball because it hit him. He lost the tournament. I have days like that, don't you? Sam Goldwyn, who was the great movie director, said that once he went with a producer to preview a movie. And after the movie was over, the producer said, "Now, wasn't that a real swashbuckler?" Sam said, "Yeah, it was, but the trouble is it buckled where it should have swashed." That's a pretty good description of my life sometimes, and maybe yours. It buckles where it should swash. That's why it's so wonderful to be in worship on Sunday mornings, to hear the gospel and to have fellowship with one another and to enjoy the togetherness and the family that we have here. Jesus said, "I am the vine, and you are the branches." Have you ever thought about how much hope is packed into that little sentence? I am the vine, and you are the branches. First of all, he is the vine. He that nourishes our hungry spirits. We always fail when we look for nourishment in other places, don't we? A cartoon showed a man standing in a bar with a very somber look on his face. And he said to the guy next to him, "I come in here to drown my sorrows, but the darn thing's learned how to swim." There are some people who will seek what they need in the bar. There are some who will seek what they need sitting in front of the TV hour after hour, or playing video games, or doing other things, even art and philosophy, anything that's overdone and we forget about our connection with the Lord, any of those things. Crimes of violence in this nation are happening. It shocks us when we read that in 2023, 18,000 people were murdered in this country. 18,000 people. And that was a good year. It dropped 7,000 from the previous year. It was 25,000 that year. But here's something that's even more shocking. That same year, last year, 50,000 people in the United States committed suicide. 50,000 people. More than any year ever on record. The CDC reports, and it gets even worse, because the CDC reports that suicide is the second leading cause of death for teens and young adults ages 10 to 34. In 2023, 22% of high school students who were asked reported seriously considering suicide in the past year. 10%, 1 out of 10 actually attempted it. These are some sad numbers. There are some sad, lonely people out there. And they are not only in hospital beds, in ghettos, in the bad part of town, or on drugs. Some of these people are in some of the best homes in the best parts of town. It's not our outer circumstances that determine our inward happiness. Some people, surrounded by every convenience and luxury that you can possibly think of, are absolutely miserable on the inside. We see this from time to time when a celebrity takes their own life. You look at a man like Robin Williams, seemed to have everything, and yet he took his own life. Many other examples. Others who are in the most difficult circumstances that you could possibly think of rise above those circumstances, and they claim victory, and they do okay. Gerald Coffey is a retired captain in the Navy. He was a POW in Vietnam for 7 years. While he was there, he was kept in a very small cell where he could only take 3 steps in any direction. He was there for 7 years. During those years of unbelievable hardship, this man was able to pray, God, help me to use this time to get better, to be a better person. He took a dismal situation and he turned it around and he used it for a time of mental, emotional, and spiritual growth. He could only communicate with the other POWs by knocking on the walls of his cell. And so that's how they communicated. And they were able to learn French that way. They put together their own language of the knocks. Maybe they use Morse code, I don't know. But he said that he also learned to recite Shakespeare during his time there. Most amazing of all, these guys kept their sense of humor. He said he would write little poems to keep himself entertained and amused when things would happen to him. And he said one day, the one that he wrote that he really liked the best went like this: little weevil in my bread, I think I just bit off your head. Now that's looking at the bright side, right? Captain Coffey, after he retired, he spoke to major conferences, corporations, on the subject of keeping your faith and your sense of humor through difficult times. He used his terrible experiences to inspire other people. Jesus is the vine. Jesus was his vine. We are the branches. Gerald Coffey's captors, the ones who held him prisoner all those years, couldn't know that he had connections. He had connections in high places. Gerald was connected and still is connected to the vine, which is Jesus. And that's the difference in his life. Jesus is the vine. We are the branches. He connects us with one another. We're dependent upon one another. We not only have connections in high places, but we also have connections in low places and places in between. We are connected to one another like branches are connected to the vine, Jesus. A cartoon showed a huge desk, and here's this executive sitting behind the desk, probably the CEO, looking all important and stuff. And then on the other side of the desk, here's this man standing here facing him, and he's dressed in work clothes. And he says to the big boss man, if it's any comfort, it's lonely at the bottom too. We live in a world that can be very, very lonely, whether you're at the top or at the bottom. We need to affirm and embrace the idea that we are family with every single person in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you are all brothers and sisters. We're all part of the same family. We are God's children. Why are some of us lonely? It should not be. 21 workers in a factory in New York years ago, each chipped in $1 and they bought a ticket in the New York State Lottery. Guess what happened? One of their tickets was a winner. They won $41 million. This story was in the headlines all over the country because it was earlier on in the lottery thing. Not only because of the size of the pot, but because of the rainbow of people who won that day. There were black people, white people, yellow people, brown people. Mariano Martinez, Cheat Wasi, Jaroslo Siwi, Peter Lee. All of these guys and gals were immigrants from countries, from Poland to Paraguay, from Trinidad to Thailand. And Peter Lee said in an interview, "We're like a big family here. We thought by pooling our efforts we might have a better chance, and we were right." Now, I don't play the lottery, and if you do, good for you. I hope you win, because then you can give, you know what you can do with some of the money, right? Yeah, okay. But I do like to see people work together, and that's what happened there. Those people, it sounds like they were a family before they ever bought those tickets. But I like to see people work together. We do live in a rainbow world. If we can get past our petty, foolish, stupid prejudices that we have a great big family out there. I like what James Michener once said. He wrote this, quote, "I was born to a woman I never knew, and I was raised by another who took in orphans. I do not know my background, my lineage, my biological or my cultural heritage. But when I meet someone new, I treat them with respect. For after all, they could be my relatives." Other people are our people. It isn't us and them. Many of them also have connections in high places and in low places, and that makes us family. Jesus is the vine. We are the branches. But there's one more thing. He is the vine. We are the branches. He gives us the ability to bear fruit. Bearing fruit is what life is all about. The rest of the passage, if you read through verse 17, makes that very clear. Some of us are content to bear blossoms. You know those pretty flowers I was talking about that are on the crabapple tree in the spring? Some of us want to look good. We want other people to admire us, maybe even envy us, but we don't want to do the hard work and have to push through to bear that fruit. An experiment took place at Amherst College years ago. They took a squash seed and they planted it in good soil. When it had produced a squash about the size of a human head, the researchers put a band of steel around this squash, okay? And they also put a harness attachment that would measure the lifting power of that squash as it tried to grow and get bigger. They estimated that if they were lucky, they might get up to maybe 500 pounds of power, which in itself would be amazing. Well, in a month, it was already pressing the 500 pounds. In 2 months, it was up to 1,500 pounds. Then it went to 2,000 pounds, and they had to reinforce the steel bands because they were ready to break. Finally, when it reached a pressure of 5,000 pounds, 10 times what they had hoped for, it broke the bands. They opened the squash up and they found it full of all of these coarse little fibers. And those fibers had grown to fight away the obstacle that was stopping it from growing. They pulled that plant up to discover that the roots had grown tens of thousands of feet in every direction. The reason they had done that was because the squash was reaching out for help, for strength. It needed that fiber. And to get that fiber, it had to keep reaching out further and further. I would hate to think that you and I have less determination than a squash. We've been given minds and bodies. We all have dreams. We can struggle against life, and we can produce fruit on branches if we'll remember always that we are connected to the vine. Dr. Larry Baker is a man who knows about developing strong fibers strong enough to burst bands. Baker became totally blind from a viral infection when he was 29 years old. When the doctor told him, this is what the doctor said, and then I want you to hear his reaction. Well, the doctor said, I'm afraid that I have to tell you something that will affect you the rest of your life. You will never see again. Baker said, Doctor, I understand that I won't see for the rest of my life. I get what you're saying, but I will determine the effect that it has on me. It was obvious that he had taken a devastating blow, and he had used it to grow and to expand his horizons. You see, he was married, he had 3 children. He worked as a milk delivery man for a dairy in town. And then he lost his sight. He described himself in high school as, I can relate to this one, he described himself as a member of that 1/3 of the class that made the other 2/3 look good. Taking advantage of a scholarship that was offered to people with sight disabilities, he went to Indiana University. He got his bachelor's degree. He ranked 5th in his class of 780 people. He received the Presidential Achievement Award, and he went on to earn his master's and his Doctor of Business Administration degrees. He was a university professor for 10 years. Baker started his own company called Time Management Center in St. Louis. He now presents seminars all over the world. His company produces publications on time management and related subjects. He believes that everyone has some disability, some lack of ability to do something that they need to do. He says the most severe disability I have ever encountered are people who are paralyzed from the neck up, people who are not coping with changes in ideas and concepts. We make progress by our willingness to make changes. End quote. Baker, by the way, learned to ski in his late 40s, and he urges other people not to let people set limits on them, like that doctor did for him. He said, nobody has ever gone broke giving more than they received. Have faith in God, your family, your friends, and last but not least, have faith in yourself. Set your objectives, and then do what you need to do to reach those objectives. That's a good word for all of us with connection in high places. How could anyone ever put limits on us after all? We are connected to the vine. We are his branches. We are connected not only to him, but we're connected to one another, something we are forgetting in this nation. We draw our nourishment from that vine. We can get it nowhere else. And with his help, we can bear more fruit in this life. Like Gary Player, we'll have those days when that ball will smash us right in the face and maybe knock us out. We'll have days when we buckle, where we should have swashed. But we don't have to be defeated. After all, we are his. He's the vine. We're the branches. We have connection with him, with one another, and the true vine, Jesus. We are most blessed. Amen.